February 19th, 1945. The ramp drops. Black sand. Smoke everywhere. 6,000 Marines hit that beach in the first hour. By sunset, hundreds were already dead. The Japanese couldn't even be seen. They were underground, watching, waiting, hidden in 11 miles of tunnels carved straight into volcanic rock. This tiny island, just 8 square miles, would become the bloodiest battle in the entire history of the United States Marine Corps. I'm Dr. Vance, and what happened here will stay with you.
Imagine an island so small you could walk across it in a few hours. Now, picture that same island becoming a place where nearly 7,000 American Marines lost their lives. More American lives lost than in some entire wars, all for this one tiny volcanic rock in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But why? Why did so many brave young men have to fight and die here? What made this island so important that America was willing to pay that price? Let me tell you. It's early 1945. American B-29 bombers were flying from islands like Saipan all the way to Japan. These were massive planes carrying tons of bombs. But the flights were long, dangerous. If a bomber got hit, it had nowhere to land safely. If it ran low on fuel, the crew was done. Right in the middle of that flight path sat Iwo Jima. The Japanese had radar there. They could see American planes coming and warn Japan. They had fighter planes ready to attack. This tiny island was like a knife, pointed straight at the heart of the American air campaign. America needed that island. They needed it as an emergency landing strip for damaged bombers. They needed it as a base for fighter escorts. It was a stepping stone, a vital piece needed to end the war.
But the Japanese knew this too, and they had a brilliant general in charge. His name was Tadamichi Kuribayashi, and he had a plan unlike anything the Americans had ever faced before. General Kuribayashi knew he couldn't beat America in a straight fight. America had more ships, more planes, more men. So, he didn't plan to fight on the surface at all. He ordered his men to dig. And dig they did. For months, thousands of Japanese soldiers carved tunnels deep into the volcanic rock. Some tunnels went 50 feet underground. Bunker walls were 10 feet thick, solid concrete and rock. They built 11 miles of connected tunnels. A hidden underground city, invisible from the air and invisible from the sea. Can you imagine that? Digging 11 miles of tunnels by hand, under the hot Pacific sun, knowing a massive invasion was coming?
If you want to discover more truths about military history, subscribe to our channel right now. Don't forget to like this video. It helps us a lot to produce more high-quality documentaries. And please, leave a comment below sharing your opinions or a story about veterans in your family. Thanks for watching.
These men knew they were probably going to die, but they kept digging. General Kuribayashi's plan was simple and deadly. Let the Marines land. Let the beaches fill up with men. Then, open fire from every hidden position at once. He wanted every inch of Iwo Jima to cost the Americans dearly. For 74 straight days before the invasion, American ships and planes hammered Iwo Jima. Thousands of shells, tons of bombs. The Navy commanders were confident. They believed they had destroyed most of the Japanese defenses. They were wrong. Because of those tunnels, most of the Japanese soldiers had simply waited underground. Safe, protected. The surface looked destroyed, but underneath, an army was ready and waiting. February 19th, 1945. D-Day. Thousands of Marines loaded into landing boats.
They were nervous, but ready. They had been told the bombardment had softened things up. They expected a tough fight, but they had no idea what was really waiting for them. The boats roared toward the black sand beaches. The island looked quiet. Too quiet. The ramps dropped. Marines splashed into the water and ran for shore. But the beach was a nightmare. The sand wasn't normal sand. It was soft volcanic ash. Every single step, your boots sank in. You couldn't run. You couldn't move fast. You were carrying a heavy rifle, a heavy pack, wearing a heavy helmet, and you were sinking with every step. Then, the Japanese opened fire. Machine guns, mortars, artillery, all at once, from positions nobody could see. The Japanese had waited until the beaches were completely packed with Marines. Then they unleashed everything. One Marine who survived that first day wrote about it years later. He said, "You couldn't see them. You just heard the bullets and saw your buddies fall. The sand grabbed your boots. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You just tried to stay low, keep moving." Can you imagine that feeling? Being a target you can't even shoot back at? The first big objective was Mount Suribachi, the volcano at the south end of the island. It stood 550 feet tall, like a 50-story building made of rock, filled with hidden gun positions. From the top, the Japanese could see every single thing the Marines were doing. Taking Suribachi was not optional. The fight for Suribachi was brutal. The Marines had to blast their way up, bunker by bunker, cave by cave. They used flamethrowers to burn out defenders. They used grenades to clear tunnels. Every few yards was a fight to the death. It took 4 days. 4 days of non-stop close-quarters combat to climb one mountain. On February 23rd, 1945, 4 days after landing, a small group of Marines reached the top. They raised a small American flag. It was a moment of pure triumph in the middle of pure hell. Later that day, a larger flag was raised. A photographer named Joe Rosenthal captured that moment. That photograph became one of the most famous images in American history, a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and the will to fight on. But here's what most people don't realize. Even after that flag went up, Japanese soldiers were still fighting inside Suribachi, hidden in tunnels, fighting to the last man. The flag was raised, but the mountain wasn't fully cleared for days. And Suribachi was only the beginning. It was the smallest part of the battle. The rest of the island was even worse. Rocky ridges, deep ravines, jagged volcanic terrain, all honeycombed with those connected tunnels. Every bunker was linked to others. If Marines captured one position, Japanese soldiers would retreat through a tunnel and reappear somewhere else. It was like fighting ghosts. The Marines had to learn a completely new way to fight. No charging forward, no sweeping advances. Every single enemy position had to be destroyed one by one. Explosives to seal cave entrances, flamethrowers to clear bunkers, grenades thrown into tunnel openings. Slow, brutal, deadly. A young private wrote in his diary during the battle,
We are just scratching the surface of this incredible history. If you are enjoying this documentary, take a brief moment right now to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Your support is what allows us to keep digging into these forgotten archives.
It's like hell on earth. Every day is the same. You just keep going forward, trying not to think about who's next. You just try to stay alive and do your job. That's not a history book talking. That's a real kid, maybe 19 years old, trying to survive. The Japanese artillery was another nightmare. General Kuribayashi had hidden his heavy guns so well that American ships couldn't locate them. The guns would fire, then pull back into caves before anyone could return fire. Day after day, the Marines pushed forward, gaining yards, sometimes just feet. Every gain paid for in blood. The newspapers back home called it a meat grinder, and that's exactly what it was. This wasn't a battle of grand charges. This was a battle for individual rocks, individual caves, individual bunkers, one at a time, all day, every day, for over a month.
36 days. From February 19th to March 26th, 1945. 36 days of non-stop combat. Think about that. 36 days of waking up every morning knowing you might not see the next one. 36 days of that sound. Explosions, machine guns, screaming. 36 days of watching your friends die next to you. Even after the main battle was declared over, pockets of Japanese soldiers kept fighting. Some hid in caves for weeks. A few held out for months, refusing to surrender. For them, the war simply never ended. So, was it worth it? Yes, absolutely. After the battle, Iwo Jima became exactly what America needed it to be. Over 2,400 American bombers made emergency landings there. That saved nearly 25,000 airmen who would have died in the ocean. Fighter planes based on Iwo Jima escorted B-29 bombers all the way to Japan, dramatically cutting American losses. The sacrifice of those Marines directly saved tens of thousands of other American lives. Almost 7,000 Marines killed, nearly 20,000 wounded on an island of 8 square miles. Those are numbers. But behind every single number is a real person. A son, a brother, a husband, a father. Young men who left home never came back. When I look at the story of Iwo Jima, I don't just see a battle. I see something bigger. I see young men, most of them teenagers, facing something unimaginable and choosing to keep going anyway. Not because they weren't afraid, they were terrified, but because the man next to them needed them to keep moving. That's what courage really looks like. Not the absence of fear, the decision to act in spite of it. The Battle of Iwo Jima isn't just history. It's a reminder of what human beings are capable of, both the horror of war and the extraordinary bravery of those who face it. These men deserve to be remembered. Their story deserves to be told. And that's exactly why we're here. I'm Dr. Vance. Thank you for watching Vance War Files. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe, because there are thousands more stories like this one waiting to be told. See you next time. Thank you so much for traveling back in time with us today. If this story moved you, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss our next historic journey. Before you go, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your interaction keeps this history alive. Until next time, this is Dr. Vance, signing off.